We were doing another commercial, and he called me into the makeup room, and he goes, I want to talk to you about something. You're really successful at what you do. I said, well, thank you. I've been very lucky with radio because the ratings had come out that day. He goes, no, I'm not talking about that radio stuff. He goes, I'm talking about you as a director on film. I went, really? He goes, yeah.
And that is the voice of Jhani Kaye, legendary Southern California program director of KOST 103.5, KRITH 101, and 94.7 The Wave. And last time we were talking about Dick Clark, and our conversation concludes now with even more stories about the host and producer known as America's oldest teenager.
And another attribute that Dick had that I admired a lot is he never, ever lost his passion for being talent. He thought it was such a privilege. Even when he was the production company, it was such a privilege to be on camera or behind the microphone. And he realized that it was still magic for him. And he was so thankful that he got the opportunity to have that happen.
Wow, that's great to hear about that. Oh, by the way, here's a little bit of a trivia. What was the day and time that Dick Clark got married to Carrie? Do you remember that trivia?
7/7/77.
That's right, at 7 p.m.
I was there for one of the anniversaries, and typically we still get together with Carrie right around that date, if not on that date.
And then John Davidson's dad, who was a pastor, was the one who officiated the wedding ceremony.
Oh, my goodness, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Dick was so wonderful that one time we were shooting a KOST 103 commercial on the beach in front of one of his 3 or 4 homes he had at that point in time. And after we wrapped for the day, he invited the entire crew and all of us into his home, and he was behind the bar, and he played bartender and served us all our drinks and goodies. And he didn't have to do that. That's the kind of guy he was.
I know his oldest son, Rat Clark, is in entertainment as well. And Rat Clark...
Pardon me, I'm going to interrupt.
Oh, sure.
He looks like him, and he sounds like him. It's amazing.
It's funny because I remember he was on the Will Shriner show back in the 80s, and I was like, oh, my gosh, he's like a spitting image of his dad. And he says, well, originally that Rack, his dad, and then his grandpa were all named Dick, or they went by Dick. And Rack said finally got sick and tired of being at parties and somebody saying, hey, Dick, and all three of us going, yeah? So he took the initials Richard A. Clark and became Rat Clark.
Right.
I remember that commercial that he was on the beach. I remember hearing Do You Want to Know is a Secret by the Beatles is one of the songs playing in the background as he was doing that commercial on the beach.
We had that's when we would take part of the commercial and promote love songs. We'd show a couple by the fire on the beach at the end of it.
Wow, I did not know that was right in his backyard. That's great.
Yeah, literally, 10 feet away from his property. Some people in the industry thought that Dick was a little difficult to work with. No, he was just a perfectionist, and he wanted it done the right way. The same could be said of me as a program director. So here I am on the set of a Dick Clark TV commercial for KOST. And the way we typically did those is before Dick arrived, I would play him. In fact, very often in those commercials, Dick is wearing my sweater, my shirt, because we were both the same size. We didn't have to buy a new wardrobe. I just gave him some of mine. But I would sit in for him, and we would videotape me going through the commercial. And Dick would arrive, and he'd get out of the car, and he'd come onto the stage and say, do you have any tape on yourself? For 2 reasons. He wanted to see how I envisioned the commercial, and 2, he was teaching me how to act. He goes, oh, no, never hold your hand that way. Hold your hand this way. And you always, hold 2 fingers and yada, yada, yada. Anyhow, in reference to Dick maybe sometimes being difficult to work with, you got to understand that at one time, he had 24 projects in the pipeline, and we're shooting a commercial that day. And every time I said cut, he would go off to the corner of the stage and get on the phone again and be wheeling and dealing and doing something else. Well, one day, the crew was setting up the lights, and people were moving things around, and the sound guy's getting everything set up. And I had not only directed most of those spots, I typically wrote the copy and I edited the spots together. I was a one-man band. And I wanted him to say a line with a particular intonation. And he put his hands on his hips and looked at me, the only time we ever had a problem, and said, I won't do it. And everyone on that stage, people on ladders and whatnot, stopped. It was one of those moments where everyone had their gazes on me. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, what am I going to do now? I'm a young guy. I'm only 30-some years old. How the hell do you answer this or handle this situation? So I go back, and we get ready to roll. He's determined not to do it the way I want it read. Well, Dick liked being talked into the takes this way. We'd roll sound, roll camera. I'd say, ready, set, action. That's the way he liked, because on set, he would raise his eyebrows and get the smile on, and in action, he'd take off. He liked that pacing. Sometimes, though, between ready, set, and action, I would give him a note or two. Remember to look left or whatever. Well, so he's just said he won't do this line my way. And here we go. My heart's pounding, a mile a minute. And I go, all right, roll videotape, roll sound. And we're ready. And I go, ready, Dick, you're going to do it my way. Set, you're going to say it. And I said the line. And I went, action. And he did the line, and he did it my way. And when I said cut, I think you could have fried eggs on his forehead. I think he was really upset. So we had video assist, a video camera that looked through the film camera. And I never looked at videotape on set, but this time I went to Video Village, which was a table with monitors. I said, play that back for me, because I don't want to look Dick in the eye. And I play it, and I said, play that again for me, would you please? And I hear clip, clop, clip, clop. I'm hearing his shoes. He's walking up behind me, and everyone's eyes are focused on him, and he's standing over me as I'm sitting in a chair looking at the TV, and he's got his hands on his hips and watching us. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, my God. And I say, one more time, please. We played it the third time. And then I cocked my head while I'm sitting in the chair. I cocked it back and looked up at him upside down. He looks down at me with his hands on his hips, and he relaxes. He goes, you were right. That's a better way of doing it. And we never had a problem again. That was it. I had to stand my ground.
Wow.
But I was scared.
Oh, yeah.
And shortly thereafter, we were doing another commercial, and he called me in. He was getting made up. He called me into the makeup room, and he goes, I want to talk to you about something. You're really successful at what you do. I said, well, thank you. I've been very lucky with radio, because the ratings had come out that day. He goes, no, I'm not talking about that radio stuff. He goes, I'm talking about you as a director on film. I went, really? He goes, yeah. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get together, and we're going to form a company, and you're going to direct me in all my TV commercials from now on. And that's how that little partnership started.
Wow. And again, how many TV commercials did you get to do with Dick Clark?
Well, 17 or 18 years worth. I had a sneaky idea. It wouldn't have worked. I told them about it, though. When I left KOST and went to KBIG, which was another company owned by different people, I called Dick and I said, look, I want you to continue to be my spokesperson, but I want you at KBIG. He goes, how are you going to do that? I go, well, the script's going to read something like, hi, Dick Clark. For years I've been endorsing this other radio station, but I've come to find out I've been wrong. The news station to listen to. Fortunately for the market, I never got to do that. But I had a strong enough bond with the guy, he would have done that for me, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
The Christmas on the Coast has become very popular. How reluctant were you compared to Love Songs on the Coast to the all Christmas music beginning in November when that first started?
We weren't the first to do it. I heard about this There were 3 stations, I think, in Detroit all doing it at the same time, or one of the stations at least was in Detroit. And their ratings were 2.5 times the normal rating. And it was a hot new thing. It was, to me, I likened it in my mind to the time Mary Catherine said, hey, there's this love songs thing. You should do it. So it was real hard because that means breaking format. Back then, we went after Thanksgiving, just between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that's a month of ratings without the regular format. And that also meant turning the AC audience, I thought, over to K-Big, which I definitely did not want to do. Well, luck had it. It increased the time spent listening for KOST and brought in new people who usually didn't listen to KOST but wanted Christmas music. So it was a big hit. And we rode that coaster. They're still riding it today. It was a wonderful idea thought of by someone else, but I thought we executed it really well, especially with the Christmas wish, where we gave away, well, we granted people's wishes. They would call a telephone line, tell us what their wish was. I got to select the wishes. If you recall, typically they were tear jerkers because I wanted to go for the emotional side of things. People who really sounded like they needed a helping hand or were down and out. And it was wonderful. Now, when I went over to CBS Radio and they had me program the Wave as well as K-Earth, the Wave was, we were making it a mix of AC and smooth jazz. But the management at the time wanted me to do Christmas music on the Wave. And I went, oh, my God. So we tried it, and, of course, KOST won all the ratings, not the Wave. And then I had the idea. For one Christmas, the Wave beat KOST in Christmas ratings. This is when the technology of ratings changed from a diary system to what they called PPM, where the radio station puts out a silent signal that triggers these pager-like devices, think cell phones, that people wore on their body or kept with them. And those little devices could hear this secret sound, this invisible sound to the human ear, and register ratings. So to be a rating success in the new world of radio ratings, you had to get the most PPM devices listening to you. Well, we always, at the Wave and KOST, we had the Yule log on television. KOST had, I think, Channel 5 always, and the Wave had hooked up with Channel 9. KOST had years with their Yule log. We were new. It came to me that the thing to do is to go over to Channel 9, and I gave them an FM receiver. And I said, you're not going to get our audio from a line from our studios. You're going to pick up the FM signal from this radio and transmit that with that Yule log, which meant that all the TV speakers are now putting out that silent signal, which means that all these people who have the PPM devices to generate ratings, they're at home at Christmas time. They're setting those things down on tabletops or on the bedroom end table while they're playing Christmas music for 24 hours or so. And we beat them that way. Wow, I beat my old home of KOST by using the PPM against them.
And didn't Kim Amidon host the Christmas special on the Wave?
Along with Pat Prescott, I believe. It's escaping me now, but I'm sure I've had Kim do a portion of it.
In fact, I was reading that she came from Cute 102 when you hired her and Mark Wallengren, who had been on 67 KBOI Boise, Idaho. Now, 67 AM is a really strong non-directional that you can hear sometimes in Southern California. How did you first hear Mark's work?
That's an interesting story because I never heard his work that way. We had Machine Gun Kelly had come in as morning man for a short while after David K. Jones took off. And we knew we wanted to make a change in mornings. We needed a warm, cuddly morning show. So I'm just listening to tapes. I had a box of tapes, audition tapes at the time. And Mark had sent one. And when I played his tape, I went, this is the guy. something I always had my assistant do was open my mail. So if you were an applicant and you wanted to be an announcer on the station, I had my assistant pull the picture of you and pull your name and everything. I didn't want paperwork. I put the tape, or in the latter days, the CD, into the machine, and I listened to you as a listener would hear. Because the way a program director should hire talent is you have a thumbprint in your mind of what the station should sound like. All you have to do is find the person's voice that matches that thumbprint. So I would hear these talents who wanted to have jobs on the radio station as a real listener would hear them. And it was only after I was convinced that this is the person that I would look at their picture and read their resume. I didn't care where they came from. I just wanted them to sound good.
And Mark was on KOST for nearly 30 years, tying the record for the most consistent years at the same station in morning drive with Dick Whittinghill, who had been on Gene Autry's 710 KMPC from 1950 to 1979. I think Mark was on KOST from 1986 to late 2015.
Mark had a really great run. I'm really proud to say that I put Mark and Kim together. Sometimes like great comedy teams like Abbott and Costello, not so much Laurel and Hardy because they tended to get along all the time, but Abbott and Costello did not. And when Mark and Kim would have some friction, they'd come into the office and I'd have to sit them down and say, look, you are married to one another. I am not going to have a Mark Wallingren solo show on this station. Likewise, I'm not going to have a Kim Amadon solo show on this radio station. So understand that you need each other. Now, if you don't want to work together, that's fine. I'll create a new morning show. But if you want to work with me, it's going to be two voices, the two of you. And I'm one of the first guys in LA radio history to give women equal pay to the men. Kim always made as much as Mark. There was no difference. And I'm also one of the first guys. I put together an all-female staff on the wave. And at KFI, I had an all-female news department. I never had that problem that a lot of people did in the early 80s.
Johnny, it's been good to talk with you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just that radio, unfortunately, is not the way it once was. It died, as Guy Zapolian, who's a wonderful radio consultant, likes to say, it died 1,000 deaths, and all of them were self-inflicted. You know, stripping down the salaries, not marketing, not promoting, voice tracking, so many. You know, there are 1,000 little, like I said, details at the beginning of the conversation here. And in today's world, we're talking at the end of 2024, television is following radio down the same terrible path. They are destroying their legacy and why an audience wants to come and listen to you or view you.
Very good point. You mentioned television. I think about how TV programmers have forgotten about counter-programming. I think CBS Morning Drive in the weekday has the curse of canceling Captain Kangaroo. Because I remember as a little kid, NBC and ABC would have the news shows. You had Today and Good Morning America on those two networks. But then CBS had Captain Kangaroo on instead from 7 to 8 a.m. And then from 8 to 9, you had CBS Mornings with Charles Kuralt, which was a more lighthearted fare and kind of more public interest than news. But then CBS decided to get into the news game thing, and their morning shows had so many titles I can't even mention it, and they've never been out of third place. But Captain Kangaroo is that perfect counterbalance. And then now it's true also, it seems like all the networks have nothing but news programs all morning long on the networks. I'm like, you got nothing else? Or really? I mean, I know I'm flabbergasted by that. Plus the morning shows like the KTLA Morning News and the KTTV Fox 11 Good Day LA are just trouncing Today, Good Morning America, and CBS's morning show. That's proof right there that local works, because that has a much bigger audience than those national shows, which are 3 hours old by the time they come out here and get fed.
It's something that goes back to what I spoke about radio a while back in our conversation. Being first is so important. You can't be last into something.
So, Johnny, if somebody wants to get into contact with you, how is the best way to do that?
Well, since I don't have a website right now, I'd suggest that they actually contact you, Josh, and you pass them along to me. I'll be more than happy to return the call.
I'd be glad to. And thank you again for coming on to the Talking Archive podcast.
You bet. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
And next time, if you want to contact me, it's joshdj57 at gmail.com. That's joshdj57 at gmail.com. Have a great day. We'll talk soon.